Today, my guest is named Top 10 Stage Artist to Watch. First female comedian to win at the Just for Laughs Festival in the Homegrown category. She is the hilarious, multi-talented comedian, Courtney Gilmour. You may know her from her performance on stage or her podcast, X-Rated. Now, Courtney, you're like a comedian bulldozer. You've been performing on TV, movies, comedy clubs, fringe festivals, touring. You have a podcast called X-Rated. It really seems like you're doing everything, but most recently, you became a superhero on your social media with this red cape flying around. Tell me more about this.
Right, I did. Oh, I should have worn my red cape today. So I've been partnering with the with Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Center in Toronto, and it's a place where disabled kids can go and learn how to do physiotherapy and have all kinds of programs and services that benefit them. And it's Capes for Kids Week, which means that we're raising money and we're trying to raise $1 million to go towards all the programs. So it's the theme is capes and superheroes for everybody who helps to raise money. And I've been posting all over my socials, me wearing the red cape. And yes, if you that's part of the theme is that if you donate $100 individually or with your team, you get your own red cape. So I don't know what's not to like about that. I was wearing my red cape around my house and I was like, this is an amazing look. Like, I feel powerful wearing a cape, so I might just stick to it even after this is over.
I 100% agree. It was really cool to see some of your videos with it. So off the top of your head, and you might not know, what's the current the raising that they have right now? How far away are they from the $1 million?
So right now, I believe they're at 800,000, which is a lot. So they've made a lot of headway within the last week, and it's a campaign that's close to my heart because I've gone there. I have a prosthetic leg, and I used to wear prosthetic arms. I'm an amputee growing up, and so I basically they're family to me, and I go there all the time. I grew up going there, so I know for sure, like, you know, the programs and services are very beneficial for kids with disabilities. So I'm hoping that they make their goal. So yeah, it's capesforkids.ca if anyone wants to check it out, if they're tuning into this.
Now, capesforkids.ca, can they also, they'll get all the information about the facility or just the community raisement?
Everything is there. So about both the campaign and then everything about the facility is on there. So yeah, it's all there. It's all over my socials too. So yeah, it's a really great campaign, and I'm excited for them.
So Courtney, you're a stand-up comedian. I've personally seen your stuff. You're hilarious. What drew you to comedy originally?
Thanks. That's such a good question. I don't know what specifically drew me to comedy. I mean, I guess I've always thought that I was funny. I've always been making jokes, and sense of humor has always been important to me. I grew up in a very funny family. My family is very outgoing, and they're very gregarious people. I'm kind of the opposite. I'm more of a introverted type, quiet type, and so I think out of everybody, it's a very big surprise that it was me who became the comedian. But, you know, I've just been surrounded by funny people. And in college, I just decided to give it a try, just like, a show that I saw, like an open mic kind of thing. And it sort of snowballed from there. Once I tried it, I uncovered, like I untapped this performative quality in me that I didn't know that I had. And so once that was off to the races, it was an adrenaline rush, and I moved to Toronto and I kept going at it. And yeah, from there, it's been great.
That's awesome. There's a set that you have, and I know we chatted offline about this. I believe your set opens up with, I know some of you can tell me that I don't have hands by the sound of my voice. So right. Why is that important to your set? Why open your set like that?
I mean, I love a good misdirect, you know. It's because I'm missing both my hands, like it's a very obvious disability. Some people have invisible disabilities, but mine is like right there. So, you know, I can't, like in getting started in my career, I didn't really have the luxury of just breezing past it. Nor did I want to. Like I genuinely enjoy talking about my life and and not having hands, but it wasn't really an option to not address it. It's right there in your face. And so it would be weird if I just, did a solid 20 minutes on iPhones versus Androids and not talk about the fact that I'm missing hands. So the whole, I know you can tell by the sound of my voice that I don't have hands. I just think it's a silly little misdirect, because it starts by making it seem like I'm talking about something else, and then I just throw a little left, a curveball. It's
nowhere,
fun.
yeah.
It's a fun little way to get into it right away.
So how do you come up with your jokes? Is there a formula that you use to create them? I mean, with your career, have you just gotten to I know how to make this funny point? How do you get a joke from inception to stage?
Well, I have a Google Doc and it's full of all kinds of buzzwords and ideas and thoughts that just come to me that I think throughout the day, talking to friends. A lot of my friends, most of my friends, I would say at this point, are comedians. So, you just have life experience. I would say that my style is very based on and influenced by my daily life experience. And so if something happens that is funny or could be funny, I write it down and then I try it out. I don't know that I have a formula beyond. I go to open mic shows, which are shows around the city that are just at bars at 8:00 on a Monday, and you go and you bring your joke book or your Google Doc and you just try stuff and you see what hits. It's a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. So I am a very written comic, though, in the sense that I need to write full sentences of an idea and then condense from there and see how to trim the fat, which parts of this idea are actually funny. So I guess that's my formula. But yeah, just a lot of trial and error.
Now, I was reading online that at one point, and I'm not sure still if you're doing this, you were actually offering some comedy classes for people with disabilities and kind of that general the world there. Are you still offering these programs?
Right. Yeah. So before the pandemic, I was offering in-person classes at a facility here in Toronto for people with disabilities. And then I started offering it on Zoom just individually myself. And I just did, I think, 3 rounds over the past 6 months of people on Zoom doing a little workshop. And I don't currently have anything right now that's planned, but kind of what I do is I just garner interest. I gauge, on my socials, how many people who follow me would be interested in just learning about, how to write a good joke, how to take your life experience as a person with a disability and make it funnier. So so I do periodically I'll put a call to action, hey, is anyone interested in doing this again? And then if enough people are interested, I'll do it. So I would say I would direct anyone to my socials. If you're interested in that, shoot me a message and I can plan something. But yeah, you don't even have to be interested in trying stand-up comedy. For me, it's just really cool to be able to be in a room, virtual or not, with other people with disabilities and just write some stuff and say, hey, this funny thing happened to me the other day. How can I get the most comedy out of it? And then we share, I share my tips based on how I do it, and they teach me things too about, different disabilities. I'm the most familiar with my own disability. So being around other people and learning about what they go through, it's really enlightening for all of us. So it's a fun time. Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned that they can reach out to you on your socials. So what is the best way to get in contact with you if some of our viewers are like, I really want to take advantage of this session with you? How can we get in touch with you on that?
Yeah, so I would say message me on Instagram. I mean, I have a website, CourtneyGilmour.com, where I have everything, all my socials on there. But if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, my Instagram is at Courtney J. Gilmour. You can find me on there, and I check a lot of messages on there the most, and I post on there about upcoming virtual workshops. So yeah.
Okay, but have you ever been on stage and just forgot a punchline? What'd you do?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny you ask that, because that just happened to me 2 weeks ago. And I think it was a combination of, well, actually, I think it's exclusively just having felt very rusty coming back from lockdowns and quarantine and just not being in the rhythm of doing comedy on a regular basis. So yeah, I was doing a show and it was going very well. My set was going very well. And then at the end, I decided to close with a joke that I hadn't done in a while. And I knew I was going to do this joke, but I hadn't gone through it. And I was just like, oh, it will come to me. It'll come to me in a second. You know, it'll all come back, just like Celine Dion told us. And that was not the case at all. I started talking, and as I'm talking, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't remember what the punchline is. I remember it's like having a recipe. I remember the ingredients, but I don't know which order they're supposed to go in. And I ended up just telling this story that was supposed to be funny, but because I forgot the punchline, I think it just sounded concerning and kind of sad. So that was an unfortunate mishap that happened, and I felt so mortified by it. But the good part was a couple weeks later I was able to do another show, and I did that same joke specifically to redeem myself. I just wanted to tell that joke again so that I could get it right and feel like I canceled out the blunder. So yeah, I mean, in terms of what you do, there's not really sometimes like calling it out in the moment can be funny, being like, listen guys, like I'm just gonna be straight with you here. I don't know what this joke was. I don't remember. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It doesn't happen that often, fortunately, but when it does, you just kind of have to roll with it.
Nice. So what is something that people tend to misunderstand about you the most?
Oh boy. Well, it's interesting. I guess there are a lot of things to misunderstand about me, because I think I get the impression that when I meet the average person, like in a comedy club or just day to day, I'm usually their first amputee. Like I'm usually the first and maybe only person they have ever met or will ever meet who's missing limbs. And that comes with all kinds of like preconceived notions and assumptions about how I live my life. And usually those assumptions they come from a place of thinking that, you know, I can't really do anything. And of course, all disabilities are so varying in the degrees of help that we need. And there's nothing wrong with needing help, but it's just so alarming to me that I will tell a story about taking a cab on stage and people will message me and be like, well, how did you open the cab door? How did you get into the cab? And I'm like, you weren't listening. So I joined TikTok a couple of months ago, and I've been posting TikTok videos, like my stand-up, and the comment section is wild. The comment section is just rampant with people, all kinds of assumptions, you know, and it's very illuminating for me to be able to get a glimpse into what able-bodied people assume about disability. And it's annoying at sometimes, but at the same time, it gives me a little insight into how I can approach the way I speak about myself. Because, you know, if I can speak about myself in a way that tells you how to treat me in the future, I think I'm doing both of us a favor. So that's the way I look at it.
Now, it kind of leads me to my next question with you. You have a set, I believe, and it's Awkward Encounters. So I'm feeling like there's a parallel between the misunderstandings and these awkward encounters set that you have. Did that kind of formulate that way for you?
Yeah. I think that my early start in comedy was heavily reliant on awkward encounters and very, you know, bizarre exchanges I've had with strangers. I think the bulk of my comedy has been rooted in that. And it's done well for me because, you know, when I talk about a cab driver, you know, asking me what happened to my hands, and then when I answer and he tries to relate to me by saying that his sister has back problems, it's like, it's funny, but it's also like when I tell an audience that, I feel like they're laughing because they know it's ridiculous, but they also identify with having been that person at some point in their lives. And so, you know, I think that's very helpful for them to be like, oh, okay, like that's me. Like I've said something dumb like that before. And my comedy is not meant to be like an educational experience every time, but if I can help people realize that treating disabled people a certain way is kind of weird, that's important to me too. So yeah, but yeah, I guess there are definitely parallels between that, the awkward encounters. It's a funny way for me to call out those microaggressions and things like that in a way that brings more levity to the situation, so that people can empathize with me and then hopefully change their behavior going forward into the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You were actually named, I believe it was the first female comic at the Just for Laughs Festival in 19 years in the homegrown category. Mm-hmm. What was that like? Did they just say, "Hey, you won," and "Hey, great, let's go home"? Like, what was that process being there?
I mean, it was a pretty grandiose experience at the time. I mean, this was a competition that I had wanted. I mean, this was a goal of mine, was to go to that specific competition and ideally win. I would have been happy just to have been there, but it was definitely a bonus. And to know that they hadn't, crowned a female winner in 19 years. 19 years is a long time for only men, for only, straight men to be winning the title. And it was surreal to me at the time. It was a very exciting experience. It was my first time at Just for Laughs. And for those of you who don't know, like the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, it's like it's a goal for most comedians to reach. It feels like an Olympic level achievement to be there. And this contest was incredible. It was a really exciting, nerve-wracking experience. I didn't know if I was going to win. They had like a tie with me and another person in the competition who is a non-binary comedian, and it was incredible. It was really, I felt very good about myself, and it was just such a surreal night and definitely a memorable experience for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, if I was reading correctly, at one point in time, you wanted to become a model, and I believe you got that opportunity to do so with Now Magazine, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't want to be a model, but like, hey, I'm not going to say no to a nice photo shoot. I mean, I'm a 5'0". I'm a little, I'm short. I'm not, usually models are like very tall and stuff, but like, then I've done a couple of photo shoots. I did one for Fashion Magazine, and they dressed us up in like Sephora stuff, and it was really awesome. And then, and then I've had some features in some magazines, and it's been very cool to have that experience and have people feature you that way.
That's awesome. Do you get to keep any of the clothes afterwards, or you got to give it all back?
I think I gave it. Yeah, I had to give it back. Yes, I think I got some free makeup, but I had to give it back.
Brilliant, Courtney. When people say the word community, what does that really mean to you?
Community. I would say community is a group of like-minded people who feel a sense of connectedness with each other. I love that word and the concept of it. I love being part of the stand-up community. I love being part of the disability community. It's like people who can share stories with each other coming from very similar life experiences, and also different life experiences where we can share with each other and learn. And
So you have a podcast.
Right. Okay. So it's called Rated X Podcast, and it's I mean, I guess it's not what it seems. So during the pandemic, when everyone was like making sourdough bread and learning acrylic painting and woodworking and just like bettering themselves, I had the idea of, what if I started a podcast with my ex-boyfriend? That was my idea during the pandemic, and it turned out to be a good one because so I'm best friends with a person who I used to date. Like, it was quite a while ago, and we're very close, and a lot of people are mystified by our dynamic because we're both comedians, we're both very good friends, and we love we love psychology and just the inner workings of relationships. And so we decided to start a podcast where we rate and review fictional relationships. So from like TV, movies, couples, all the famous iconic couples throughout history, we dedicate a podcast episode. We watch what they're in, and then we sort of analyze them based on our own experience of being in a relationship.
That sounds hilarious, actually. And where can people listen and subscribe to your podcast?
Yeah, so it's on, it's pretty much everywhere you get podcasts. It's on Apple, Spotify, Anchor.fm is like where we have the home base of the podcast. It's called Rated X. You can look it up and you can find it on there. It's also on my socials too. I've got links to it. And yeah, we're taking a bit of a hiatus right now, but I think we have 3 seasons up already. So we have a ton of content on there. We also have a Patreon where you can sign up for bonus content, and we spill a lot of tea on our personal relationship. We have an episode where we talk about our breakup and all that juicy stuff, so it's really fun. So
do you have any words of motivation or advice for anybody who's looking to get into comedy like yourself?
Yeah, just do it. Don't think about it too long. If you think about how you want to do comedy for too long, you'll never do it. And so, because it's a nice idea, but it can be very scary to get on stage, especially if you've never done it before. But right. I would say if you have an interest, go to a few local comedy shows. This is not me promoting myself, by the way. This is not me saying that, hey, you can get into comedy by coming to see my show, but it can't hurt. But go to like a Yuck Yucks amateur night and like just get a feel for how the rhythm of the show goes, and then sign up for an open mic. Just throw your name in the hat, come up with like, a few ideas and put together like a 3 to 5 minute set. And just try it. Don't have too high expectations of yourself. Just do it for the fun of it and see if you like it. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. I have one last question for you today. What makes Courtney Gilmour smile?
Oh boy. My cat makes me smile. I have a very fluffy cat, and I love animals. I love lots of things. Just hanging out with my friends. Yeah, I want to say that my friends are superior to my cat in that regard, but I don't think that's truthful. I think my cat makes me laugh more than most comedians do. So I'm going to go with that one.